U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is pushing Washington's ability to stimulate growth and entrepreneurship in Africa as he wrapped up a three-day tour of the continent that saw him in Senegal, Angola, and Ethiopia. VOA State Department correspondent Saine is traveling with Secretary Pompeo, and she has our report.
Secretary of State Mike Pompeo had his second day in Ethiopia, where he first went to a privately owned co-working space called Blue Space, where he again met with women entrepreneurs, as he has at all three of his stops in Africa. And they talked to him about their businesses and their ideas. After that, Secretary Pompeo went to the UN Economic Commission, where he gave a speech on liberating entrepreneurs in Africa. And he cautioned against, saying South Africa, for example, is contemplating nationalizing some land or businesses. And he said that is not the way to go. We know that private enterprise and small businesses and the dignity of work is what really brings success.
Centralized planning hasn't worked. Look at the failed socialist experiments of years past in Zimbabwe, in Tanzania, and right here in Ethiopia. Even now, even as we stand here today, South Africa is debating an amendment to permit the expropriation of private property without compensation. That would be disastrous for that economy, and most importantly for the South African people.
And Secretary Pompeo stressed that the reason that he chose the three countries that he did, Senegal and Angola and Ethiopia, is that the people there are demanding change and their leaders are responding.
Everyone in this room know the right way forward. Basic, strong rule of law, respect for property rights, regulation that encourages investment. We talked about that with these entrepreneurs this morning. You need to get the basic laws right so that investors can come and invest their capital. We also need women's full participation in this economic liberations. And we need governments that respect their own people. These are the fundamental ingredients for true, inclusive, sustainable economic liberation.
He said it was a fantastic visit and that he was even more optimistic after having visited than he was before.
The Asian tigers lifted themselves up in a span of just a few decades because they liberalized and they opened for trade. That can happen right here too. And indeed, I would argue that it must.
Saine, VOA News, Saudi Arabia.